Jason, Friday the 13th, Family Tree Explored. Whether you are on campgrounds or in space, you can run, but you can never hide from Jason Voorhees. Accompanied by his hockey mask, heavy breathing, and a particular fascination with extremely creative but gruesome murders, Jason Voorhees quickly rose in the ranks of terrifying slasher villains that you do not want to come across. But as the argument behind most killers goes, was it nature that made him this way, or the nurture that made him this way? To answer that, today we will take a deep dive into the family tree of this killer and figure out who made Jason the way he was, and if this trait of hatred towards young teens having unprotected sex runs deep in the family. Now, before we delve deep into Jason's family tree, let's talk about Jason himself. Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us it means a lot. Thank you, and let's begin. Born with hydrocephalus, Jason had a bigger head than normal and several facial deformities. He had learning disabilities as well, and this definitely played a huge role in him being so nonverbal. His mother also did not let him mix with other people in the community, and that led to Jason being even more reclusive. He was very close to his mother, and Jason was sure that his life would be significantly tough to lead if she were not there to guide him through everything, and that led to an extremely unhealthy codependency for him. When his mother got a job at the summer camp in their town of Crystal Lake, Jason had to tag along with her because there was no one who could take care of him. This led to him iterating with teenagers for the first time. Teenagers can be extremely cruel, and this is exactly what Jason faced. The teens at the camp bullied him a lot. This bullying led to Jason being thrown off the dock and into the lake, where he was assumed to have drowned. This whole incident would have been avoided had the counselors in charge been doing their job and not doing the devil's tango. As Jason's body was never found, no one was charged as guilty. But as things would turn out to be, Jason had not drowned. He somehow managed to come on land, and it is assumed that he survived in the woods for years waiting for his mother to come and save him. But she never did because it was assumed that she was dead. When he finally met his mother after years of separation, she was already dead as she was decapitated. This led to Jason becoming a killer, ready to track down whoever killed her. Eventually, he did, and brought the dead body to his mother's shrine that he made out of her decapitated head, her sweater, and the machete that was used to decapitate her. Overall, they are very memorable and emotional objects. However, Jason's obsession with killing young campgoers started in the summer of 1984 when Jason decided that the young camp counselors in the nearby lodge were trespassers. With that, we see the birth of a very silent and gruesome serial killer.
Don't let her live. I won't, Jason. I won't.
Pamela Voorhees, mother. Now, when we first meet Pamela, we are very sympathetic towards her. She's a single mom struggling to make ends meet, and she has a son who is completely dependent on her. But when the reveal comes out that she is, in fact, the killer, it is a bit of a shock. No one was expecting Pamela Voorhees to be the hidden main antagonist, but there we were. As we look deep into her backstory, we can clearly see that Pamela was never quite right in the head. In 1946, Pamela and Elias started living in the trailer that he got. The life in the trailer was not ideal for Pamela because she was constantly abused by her husband, and her unborn child's thoughts of violence clouded Pamela's judgment a lot. Her claim of being able to hear the baby's thoughts never quite made sense, whether this was a supernatural thing or just a full-out psychosis that was never confirmed. When we meet Pamela in the movies, she is a single mother. So you might be wondering what happened to Elias. Well, in the comics, we see that Elias was actually killed by Pamela because of reasons. Once her abusive husband was no longer in the picture, Pamela moved to Crystal Lake, where she eventually bought a house because God called her there. Eventually, she started working for the Christies, and soon enough, Jason was born. Although he had severe deformities, in her eyes, he was perfect. Even when Jason had mutilated and killed kittens, Pamela found no fault in her son. She considered leaving her job to protect Jason from the judging eyes of people, such as Mrs. Cunningham, who was babysitting him when she found out about Jason's rather cruel hobby. But this never came to fruition because Dave Christie asked Pamela to bring Jason onto the campsite. Then Jason went through horrendous bullying and he drowned in the lake. Since nobody was found, everyone assumed he was dead, and Pamela was not okay with how the counselors, whose negligence had resulted in her son's death, were let go scot-free. So she took justice in her hands and waited until she met Barry and Claudette again. She killed them in cold blood, and it was clear that she did this because in her eyes, it was the act of sex that caused her son to die. This led to her returning to the camp again in 1979 to go on a killing spree. She was successful for the most part, and only Alice Hardy remained as the sole survivor of the massacre. Alice decided to fight back against Pamela and ended up beheading her. Pamela's death was found out by Jason, who surprisingly was not dead and had been lying in a shack waiting for his mother to return. Creating a very messed up shrine with his dead mother's belongings, Jason set out on a journey to kill Alice to avenge her. So clearly, Pamela played a huge role in her son's career as a serial killer. Elias Voorhees, father. On Friday the 13th novelization, Jason Lives, we get to see Elias for the first time. He is a short man with stoic features. He seems rather intimidating. I wanted to see him in the flashbacks of Jason vs. Leatherface, and overall, Elias seems extremely abusive, but we still do not get a lot of detail about him. Until Friday the 13th, Pamela's tale came out. Here we learn more about Elias. Elias is a bauxite miner, and he married Pamela when she was on the cusp of 20. She was very young to be carried, but this marriage happened, and since as a miner he earned just enough to make ends meet, they ended up living in a trailer. In this trailer, whenever Elias came home and felt like Pamela had committed a crime, he personally dished out justice for her real or imagined crime because he could. This verbal abuse and physical abuse definitely took a toll on her. When Pamela was pregnant, she was speaking with her unborn son while he was getting beaten up, which led to Elias increasing the severity of the beating. So once he had fallen asleep, Pamela gave in to her desires and, using an axe, killed him. She diced him up into tiny pieces and threw him into the water of Crystal Lake. It is not known whether or not Elias knew about Jason, but as the story progresses, we learn something extremely sinister about Elias's bloodline. As it turns out, Elias is a descendant of an extremely powerful witch known as Jebediah Voorhees. Jebediah had a copy of Necronomicon Ex Mortis. It is said that the book was passed down from Jebediah into the hands of Elias, who then used it to summon a demon because he did not know any better. This demon is what possessed Jason. Jessica Kimble, half-niece. In the movie Friday the 13th, Jason Goes to Hell, we get to see Jessica. Now, who is Jessica? In the Voorhees family, Jessica is the daughter of Diana, who is Jason's half-sister, making Jessica his half-niece. In the movie, we see Jessica being an extremely caring mother to her daughter. However, this happy life of Jessica gets disturbed when she gets the news that her mother Diana has killed her. Jessica thinks it was done by her ex-boyfriend Stephen Freeman, despite him trying his best to make her understand otherwise. Jessica really cannot believe Stephen because at one point he runs over Robert, who, unbeknownst to her, was possessed by Jason. As Robert Campbell was her current boyfriend and her ex-boyfriend Stephen literally tried to run him over, understandably, Jessica did not have it. She goes to the police station hoping to get some protection, but that thing goes downhill real fast when Robert Jason shows up and kills all the cops. Stephen and Jessica try to keep their daughter safe, but Creighton Duke kidnaps the baby in the midst of this ruckus. When Jessica meets him at the Voorhees house as instructed, she is told her true identity and that she is the only one who could defeat Jason owing to the bloodline. Armed with a dagger and her baby safely hidden, Jessica starts hunting Jason. Finally, when she finds him, she stabs him in the chest, and the ancient demons from hell pull him into hell through a portal that his stabbing had just opened. This was definitely not the best uncle-niece reunion that we were hoping for. Free Jefferson, son. In the Friday the 13th novel called Jason X, To the Third Power, we meet Free Jefferson. As surprising as it is, he is Jason's son. Now you're free to ask who would even sleep with Jason, how the baby even came into being, and whatnot. And all of those would be valid questions, so let's answer them. Free Jefferson is the son of Jason Voorhees and Sarah Jefferson. He was not conceived naturally. In fact, he is the product of genetic manipulation. When Jason was kept on Earth 2's moon, a doctor called Dr. Claude Bardox used the genes from Jason and created Free. Nobody except the AI knew that Jason was locked in the facility, and as nothing in this world can stop Jason from going anywhere, he gets out of the containment facility. Jason, once out of the containment, goes on his mandatory killing spree, and the only way Free could protect himself is by launching Jason to the other uninhabitable moon of Earth 2. The novel ends on an ambiguous note as Jefferson waits for a rescue that may not even come because there is no one else left in the facility except the AI.
Is that you?
I don't need you to fight my battles.
I don't need any part-time protection.
Diana Kimble, half-sister. Diana Voorhees was born to Elias and another woman. Diana did not know about Jason, but she knew that her half-brother was reborn and his body needed to be destroyed. She married Mr. Kimble, had a daughter named Jessica with him, and overall, she was having a significantly peaceful life until, in 2003, she was told that her half-brother's body had disappeared from the morgue. She was told about her familial ties to Jason Voorhees by Creighton Duke, and wanting to protect her daughter and her granddaughter, she wanted everyone to come back to her place. The first person she ended up shooting was Deputy Josh, who was possessed by Jason. She noticed Jason's reflection in the mirror, and without any hesitation, she decided to shoot him. Sadly, a mere bullet was not enough to bring Jason down, and he sprung back up to attack her. Jason wanted to use Diana to be reborn, but that was not happening. While trying to hit Steven, Jason accidentally ended up hurting Diana instead, and Diana died in Steven's arms. Diana's body was taken out of the morgue by Robert Campbell because he wanted to exploit the Voorhees murderers, even though he is Jessica's boyfriend and Jessica's mother. Even though Jason did end up reborn, Jessica sent him back to hell by the end of the movie. Diana happens to be the 96th victim of Jason. Stephen Freeman, nephew-in-law. In Jason Goes to Hell, Stephen Freeman is the father of Stephanie. He used to be my boyfriend, but their relationship changed and there was no contact between them. Stephen is honestly the man. When Diana, his ex-mother, asks him to drop by her place after her shift, Stephen comes, and when he sees her getting attacked by Deputy Josh, who is possessed by Jason, Stephen does not hesitate to fight to protect everyone. Sadly, Jessica is murdered in the kerfuffle, and before she can tell him about his daughter, Diana passes away. As Stephen was at the wrong place at the wrong time, he was framed for her murder. That earned him a night in jail. While in jail, he cornered Creighton Duke, who was the bounty hunter hassling Diana at the diner. But Duke does not help him that much with information. But Stephen does get out of the jail. Soon after getting out from there, he had to go back to a police station because that is where Jessica was getting attacked by a possessed Robert. He got into a physical brawl with Robert Jason because he wanted to protect the mother of his child, and his child, whom he saw for the first time. They think that they have defeated Jason and they try to reunite with Stephanie, their daughter, but it turns out Duke has kidnapped Stephanie and taken her to the Voorhees house. To save the daughter, the parents go to the Voorhees house where Stephen figures out that Diana's body is in the basement and Demon Jason will use that body for his rebirth. They're unable to stop it, and the reborn Jason and Stephen go hand in hand. Stephen is beaten up very badly, but thanks to Jessica stabbing him with a dagger she got from Duke, she was able to send Jason back into hell. Stephanie Kimble, great half-niece. In Jason Goes to Hell, Stephanie is just a baby whose body Jason tries to use to be reborn, but then settles to use Diana's body instead. However, when we look at the comics, we get to learn a little more about Jason's great half-niece. As it turns out, Jessica had passed away a few years ago, and Stephanie keeps getting nightmares about Jason. The stress and the trauma are affecting her, and her father has done everything he can to help her. But he has failed. That was until Dr. Maggie Burroughs showed up. She wanted to form a survivor group of victims of Jason and Freddy Krueger, and despite Stephen's cynicism, Stephanie wanted to go. However, the meeting went terribly, and Stephanie had to watch helplessly as her great-uncle slaughtered her father. After that, Freddy possesses Stephanie and tries to seduce Jacob to get to his mother. However, once he was done with her, he skinned her, and Stephanie was only saved thanks to Alice. After learning about her true heritage, Stephanie decided to embrace this, and she donned a hockey mask and set out on a prowl to kill Jason. She impales him with a machete, and that weakens him enough for Tommy Jarvis to finish the job. Sadly, the comic book Freddy vs. Jason vs. Ash, the Nightmare Warriors ends on an ambiguous note, with Stephanie leaving town with two of her friends. Marvelous verdict. With that, we come to an end of the family tree. Seems like when you are a Voorhees, whether you like it or not, your hands will get red with blood either way. It could be because you want to avenge your son and save yourself from an abusive husband, or because you want to save yourself from your uncle who is trying to use your body to be reborn. Overall, the Voorhees family is quite messed up, and this spooky season, to spice up your family dynamics a little more, consider a marathon of the Friday the 13th series with the perfect amount of campiness and horror. And if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one and be safe. Thanks everyone.